Hey everybody, it's Thursday.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Night Bite.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Emily, and we are so excited to be here tonight. We've been kind of in the fishing mindset all week, and what I mean by that is we have been planning to go camping, ice camping. And I think there's been years we've done this, a few times, and I just feel like this year we're looking for a new spot. We have a new tent, we're trying a new setup. Just everything about it is going to be a little bit different, and for some weird reason, it feels like the first time all over again.
Yeah. And last week we didn't come with you with a thing because I was out of town, and I was hoping to bring some more fish pictures. But I think just like everybody else here in Wisconsin, it was a little bit of a tough bite last weekend.
I have heard all kinds of things. To be honest, I heard actually a guy said that there was some luck to be had out on Green Bay.
Ooh.
So I don't know how those large body of waters were affected, but I know that you were on a pretty good sized body of water and those fish were not really biting, and you guys were looking around. And I was on a lake where we normally get all kinds of bites, and it just was a grind. So Sunday we have this little, I don't know. I almost want to call it a secret spot. It's not a secret. There's nothing secret about it. It's like the middle of the lake somewhere. But
all of your spots are secret.
Nobody else seems to be fishing there this year. And so we went to our secret spot. And we did actually a lot better on Sunday. It was a big rock pile in the middle of the lake, and we got just all kinds of fish come through. It's always a multi-species day, and I would say mostly bluegills this past weekend, and you were a little bit luckier than I was, but it was nice to get on a bite.
Yeah, it was nice to catch some fish. We did catch some nice bluegills. It was just really lots of finesse in relation to whatever structure we were fishing. I honestly, we both set up on the same piece of structure, but I really think like any of the pieces of structure around there, if you were set up in the right position, to be able to utilize like a camera or your electronics effectively, I think you could catch the fish. It was just small presentations and just like taking lots of swings and misses.
So we're going to have to decide where we're going to set up for camping this coming weekend. And so I think that is most of what we would think about. Also, we're taking Friday evening, and I was going to try to convince Josh into some fishing, but I think we're going to do some packing so we're ready for the weekend.
Yep.
And what's one of the things I'm most concerned about is I have no idea what to make for dinner. So if anybody has any suggestions for, like, I don't know, what to eat when you're ice camping, I kind of like a warm meal, but I guess I'm interested in whatever your suggestions are. So with that, let us know. I guess also if you're catching fish or what's working or how that's going, because we're always interested in that. But I think a lot of people, there's going to be a lot of ice and it's going to be warm weather. And so I think people are going to be out this weekend.
Yeah, I'm betting you're going to make all kinds of friends this weekend.
It sounds sarcastic and it makes me nervous.
It makes me nervous.
Okay, so let's keep the conversation going, I guess, and let's bring in our guest. There we go. Thanks for being here this evening, Caleb.
You bet. I'm glad to be here.
Oh my gosh. And did you just vote fish fry? Because that's a lot of things to drag out of the ice.
Well, that's my favorite thing to do when I'm fishing. So I just bring a frying pan and some oil and my stove. I'm not bringing my whole deep fryer, but you can just shallow fry them on a Coleman stove. That works pretty good.
Yeah, that's true. And you have one of those.
Oh my gosh. Then you have to catch fish.
Yeah, don't bring anything else. You can only eat fish if you catch them. So
we have to make sure that we plant ourselves on a lake that in case we strike out, that
it might be in my best interest to pack snacks.
Just bring big enough minnows, and then you got
there you go.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! I'm not sure about that. But I guess, Caleb, this is our first time kind of meeting you here this evening. I feel like we always bump into you online and stuff. But for people who are just meeting you also, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. I am right now currently a full-time YouTuber. So I have a fishing channel called Hooked Up Wisconsin, and been in the fishing industry for probably going on about 7 years, maybe 6 years now. YouTube about 5 years. So I kind of started with Instagram, and then graduated up into YouTube, got into that, started making videos, and it's just went full time in April. So I grew up here in Northwest Wisconsin. That's where I'm from, Spooner area, Hayward area. I still live here. It's a great place to live. Got a great family. My parents live up here still. My wife's parents live up here. We got two awesome kids, and man, life is good.
And so how has ice season been treating you?
It's been awesome. I mean, being the first year that I've done this full time, I've had a lot more time to fish. I almost never fish on weekends anymore, and because I'm doing all my fishing and filming during the week. But I've still had so much more time to fish. And man, when you have time to be out there, you can stay on the bite. You know where things are at. Like I always say, the best thing to do if you want to get better at fishing is just go fishing more, because you go fishing twice as much, you aren't going to catch twice as many fish. You're going to catch 8 times as many fish because you're able to stay on them and learn more, and it compounds. So, just the fact that I've been out there a lot has been huge, and I've been able to have a really good season. Plus, we've had good ice. So, the ice is as good as it's been in a long time. So we've been able to kind of get around really well here for the last month, especially.
Okay, I'm going to go back to what you were saying, though, because I think that's a really important topic, and it's something that Josh and I talk about all the time.
We go
We
back and
struggle
forth
with this
all the time.
all the time. Wait,
Okay.
so let's say that you are the kind of person that has like more than average time to fish, right? Like not everybody is as lucky as you, and honestly, there's people not as lucky as us, right? But we are like weekend warriors, truly, right?
Sure.
Some people have, a few hours, and that's fine. That's when you like pick out a favorite lake, a favorite spot, a tried and true, whatever. But when you are that person that has that little bit of extra time, how do you balance between trying out new lakes and maybe staying on familiar bodies of water where you can track that bite day to day or week to week?
Yeah, that's always a balancing act. And some people never try anything new. They just go back to their same spots that they've been fishing for years, and they do great there. But you know, you can really get stuck in a rut, and those places dry up. I mean, you guys know as well as me, lakes change constantly. So if you're not trying new spots, you're missing out. Like I would say for me, the ratio is probably somewhere around 25% scouting new areas and 75% fishing old areas. I would say something like that, or new areas that I've found already that are producing. So I would say about every fourth day that I fish or so, I just pick something new or something that I fished 10 years ago and just go try a scouting trip and see what I can figure out. But there's so many factors too. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been fishing this area since I was 4. So I know when stuff's going to pop off, on certain lakes at certain times in certain conditions. So it's a little bit different than a guy just picking a random lake and trying to go figure it out. Like I know I'm not bothering to go to this one lake until this thing happens or this particular time. Like today, for instance, I did that. Hadn't been on the lake all year, but I know when the oxygen drops in that lake, which happens about now, especially on an ice year, these fish are going to push up into this creek arm where there's fresh oxygen coming in, and sure enough, they were there. There was nothing there probably 2 weeks ago, probably zero, but now they're there. So little things like that, you learn over the years, and you kind of go through this rotation of things in your mind as the season progresses of where the bites are happening and what's working now and all that stuff. And that really helps. Like once you get a few years under your belt and you can start keeping a log. I mean, if I remember all this stuff, my mind it never stops gathering information. Some people need to write it down. Like if you keep a journal or whatever, that's super helpful. I don't think I can. I don't think I've hardly forgotten a single fish I've ever caught in my entire life since I was 4 years old. Like it's crazy.
Wow. And I'm sitting here thinking like the 25% that you were saying, because that really puts into perspective to me. I think that's a really great, I'm not knocking it all. I think that's a really great statistic. But if we did every fourth trip, that would only be once every 2 weeks. So I guess kind of what we unofficially do is when we can fish Saturday and Sunday, sometimes Sunday is like a tried and true lake. Saturday is sometimes a scouting lake.
Yeah, that's a good
So,
way to do it for sure.
I don't know if we officially do that or if you knew that, but I guess my brain thinks of that.
I mean, it's always a compromise. So I have a lot of anxiety because I like knowing, I like having a lot of information to going out into a body of water, and Emily likes to just go out and just like
we will go out and we will find fish. You
and
will,
that and like
we're fishing
and,
all these little
well,
lakes. If we're going out, I can't scout all of Lake Michigan. Obviously, that's an extreme example. But when we have like
yeah, I mean,
40-acre lake,
we
can find fish.
Forward facing sonar and like, yeah, I mean it is possible, but that time for me could be spent catching fish if I know where to look, right? And so I don't necessarily revel in the pulling stuff around and drilling holes. I revel in the checking a spot, catching some fish, maybe checking another spot. But like knowing spots to go look, not just like willy-nilly, oh well, here's ice and drill a hole.
One-man sleds.
Yeah, it's
but like I like all year long is ice fishing for me, right? So as much as I love my boat, it basically is just me. It's a giant mapping tool. I just map every lake that I can as much as I can and utilize that information for winter. Mark spots for winter. Open water when you have any kind of open water vessel is just easier for fishing. The fish aren't stressed.
Yeah, sure.
There's plenty of food. It's warmer. They're moving around. Like, yeah, you can have crappy days on open water for sure. But like more often than not, you're not going to get skunked. Wintertime, on the other hand, can be really difficult. And so kind of Xing out a lot of those factors during the summer, bringing all that information into winter just makes winter fishing for me a lot more fun.
Oh, sure.
But like Emily said, she likes to just go out blind, drill hole, look around and see if she can catch the fish. And that's one way to do it.
We'll find it. That's how we do things like this.
Yeah.
And I tend to, it depends on also if I'm fishing alone or if I have people with me, because I hate scouting with people. I hate it. If I'm taking people with me, I want to take them to a place I know really well, that I know we're going to catch at least some fish. I don't want to spend half the day looking for fish. I know most people, especially people who don't ice fish a lot, they just want to go plunk down on a bucket and sit there and have a good day. And I can't do that. If there's no fish, I can't do it. I literally have to find the fish. So that drives them nuts if you're looking and looking and looking and like sit down for 2 minutes in one spot and like, nope, no fish here. Let's go. Like most people don't like that,
Yeah. Well, and I think maybe that's a little bit of my issue. It has nothing. It's not something Emily has done, but I just feel like when I'm going out there, I don't feel like Emily wants to be like moving around all the time, and maybe that's just something I need to get over personally. But I like to know spots to go check, at least that have a higher probability of having fish.
And you can do that, if you have a good mapping tool, you can do that. Now especially there's such good mapping out there, and you can have I just did a video on this actually. Last week I went and mapped out a lake, picked out some spots, kind of did some research on DNR data, and then I went to that lake blind. Never been there before, and took me a good half a day to really figure out what was going on, and then I started getting some nicer panfish and figuring out where they were and how they were set up. But it took me half to 3/4 of the day to really get a feel for that lake. So it can be done, but at least I had places to start with the mapping. I use Omnia, and they have some really cool features like bottom hardness in the sea maps. So you can actually see hard bottom transitions. You can see soft bottom where there's probably going to be weeds, stuff like that. So then I use Google Earth a lot too to find weed beds from satellite photos and stuff like that. So there's lots of ways you can pre-scout and have a pretty good idea where fish are going to be when you get there, even on a lake you've never been to.
Well, and I think that one thing that's really helped me a lot this year, and I think both of us, is like we'll go and have dinner somewhere, whatever, and the night like Friday night we'll go out and have dinner, and both of us will have our phones out, and people are like looking at us like, oh, look at those two just sitting on their phones, and then we both slam our phones on the table and we're like, okay, look at this. We're both on Onyx Fish, and we're both like picking out stuff, and I think that's helped a lot too, because it's really helped me categorize lakes, because there's a lot, you can start to group lakes into similarities, so you're like, you don't feel like you're missing out as much, I guess, in my opinion. Like, you can be like, oh, like, I'd like to try, these half dozen lakes at some point, and then you start looking at what fish are in it and kind of the structure, and like just looking around, and it's like, oh, well, all those lakes are pretty much the same. So I'm not really missing anything if I just pick one, right? They're gonna fish pretty similar. And so that's been helpful. And just like, when we do try new stuff, it has kind of helped us expand into being like, oh, well, I would have never guessed there was, walleyes over here, or like I would have never guessed that there was such good pike on this one. So it's just like, that's also a really cool tool that we've really gotten into utilizing. And you said you use Google Earth. We like to use Google Photos a lot.
Okay.
So our Google Photos, we keep, our photos are obviously private, but they're geotagged.
Oh, yeah.
So when you click on your photo, you can hit the info, and that brings up Google, like internal Google Maps. But then you can see heat maps of where you've taken the most of your pictures.
Sure. Yep.
And it gives you a really good indication on, like, you just type in like February 25, and it brings up a bunch of pictures on the map, and you can zoom into a lake and be like, oh, that's where we were fishing on February 25, and that'd be a good place to start.
Along with that, like, if you are good at each day when you're fishing, like, even if it's only for yourself, take a picture of your bait, take a picture of your graph, take a picture, like the water temperature, if it's open water, like those kinds of things, because then as you're scrolling through the different photos, you can see like, wow, in fall, chartreuse shad baits really work, but in winter you have to really go to a bloodworm, or I don't know, you never know, right? But you can follow whatever trends that lake has going on, and it's become an interesting learning tool.
Oh yeah. I mean, I have Apple, my smartphone, and that does the same thing. Just on an iPhone, you can search by location and all that stuff. I do that all the time. Also, when I'm like looking for a fish picture and I know where I caught it, I just go to the map. I'm like, zoom in. Okay, there it is. Rather than trying to scroll back through 15,000 pictures on my phone from 3 years ago.
Yeah,
it's way easier to find it by location.
It's a good point.
Okay, and I'm going to chime into the comment section a little bit. There was a comment, wish they had it for Android. And what I do on Android is if you pull it up like in your web page, and up in the corner, there's like 3 little dots, and you can save that screen as, what do they call it, an icon on your home page. And so if you click that, it will put that little image right on your home screen. You don't have to Google it. You don't have to do anything like that. So when I look at this, like, well, I know you can't really see my screen. I have to like log in, right? But I just have, like, it says Onyx, and I just click it, and it opens up every time in that web page. Oh, it's loading kind of.
Well,
there it is. It's signing in. Okay. Yeah. So but you can see, and then there's the maps, right? So it's just really that easy. And so make sure that you go and check that little setting, because that might be good for you.
Yep. Well, and also they have master classes on YouTube. If you look at Onyx Fish on YouTube, they'll teach you all the fun stuff on there too.
Okay. So aside from all of the technology, though, let's say that we hit the lake. One of the things that you were talking about this time of the year is to look for fish where the oxygen is. And in that case, I think earlier you would reference like a spring, perhaps, that was coming in or something.
It's like a creek arm. Yeah.
Yeah. So how are you finding fish this time of the year? Where do you start in this thick of the ice season?
Yeah, well, it does. Oxygen does come into play quite a bit in a lot of lakes, especially in a year like this where we have a lot of ice and snow. So one place you can look, especially in a shallow, weedy lake, is up in the creek arms, around springs, around current areas that stay open, because those are going to reintroduce oxygen back into the lake. Another thing to look for is fish high in the water column this time of year, because The oxygen always is richest at the closest point to the ice. So if you start getting oxygen dropping down low, those fish are going to move up in the water column, and sometimes they'll get pushed basically right under the ice within the top 4 feet of the water column, even over 20 feet of water. I mean, one of the worst ones I've ever seen was preceding a winter kill. There was bullheads and walleyes and everything that should be near the bottom up right under the ice, and we were catching them like 3 feet down.
Wow.
Now they were pretty lethargic. You really had to work them, but every fish in the lake was in that top 3 feet of water, just trying to get the last bit of oxygen. So, and basically what I found is it's weedy lakes that have this problem. If the lake has very few weeds, you're not going to have a huge oxygen depletion. It's the weeds dying from lack of light, and then the bacteria eating those decaying weeds, just eating up the oxygen that causes the problem. So, if you've got a dark stained lake that doesn't have a lot of weeds in it, and it's a lot less likely to have oxygen problems, in the winter. It's typically shallow lakes, like the one I was fishing today. Maybe there's one small hole that gets down to like 15 feet. Otherwise, the whole lake is probably 6 feet deep, 6 to 8 feet deep, and it's all weeds, the whole lake. So you get a year like this, and those fish are starving for oxygen. You get a creek coming in, like a trout stream. All the fish are going to push up in there, and it's super shallow. It's only like 3 or 4 feet deep. So I don't even use electronics there. I just sight fish them. So I just watch down the hole and watch them come in and eat, which is a really fun way to fish.
Oh my gosh.
So I was catching like 3-4 pound bass today, and some big jumbo perch, a couple nice gills, mixed bag, like 2 feet under the ice, just watching them come in and hit my bait.
That's awesome.
That is actually really exciting. That's so exciting. It has me excited for the weekend. Let's go catch some fish. Let's all just get up and leave and go catch fish. Yeah.
But yeah, that's one thing. And then, in lakes that don't have oxygen issues, like big deep lakes, larger bodies of water typically don't have as many problems, especially if they're, have deep basins. Panfish are still going to be in the basin this time of year. The basin bite's pretty good for crappies. They don't move a whole lot during the winter. Now, walleyes, surprisingly, on bigger lakes with weeds, mid-February to the end of the season, in the first weekend of March, is my best walleye fishing for big walleyes inland in like shallow weeds. So I'm not sure why exactly, but I think it has something to do with like the offshore Cisco's start to get hard to catch, or something happens and these bigger walleyes start moving up shallow again and chasing panfish in the weeds. And I've caught so many big walleyes in late February in like 5 or 6 feet of water, especially at night, or towards the evening. So that's another thing that starts to happen. And a lot of people just assume walleyes don't bite this time of year. They kind of shut off or whatever, but it's honestly one of the better times to catch them, in my opinion, especially big ones.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I love kind of, we've talked about, sight fishing really shallow. We've talked about, fishing shallow weeds. We've talked about, fish being deep. And I think one of the things that's really important is being open-minded as an angler, because this time of the year, sometimes people get so set, that mindset of like, where fish should be, like the old-fashioned mentality of like fish are going to be in the middle of the deepest whatever. And like maybe sometimes they are, and sometimes they stick to patterns, and that's how you get to know lakes and follow fish, right? But sometimes in order to find those fish, like when people say, oh, walleyes just don't bite at the end of winter, and it's like no, you're just maybe not fishing where the biting walleyes are, because those fish, they do have to eat. And so I think that's really, I guess, great advice for people, is like sometimes know that bite, but if you get in that instance where the bite is not there, like be open-minded enough to try something totally unique, and look for those green weeds, or look for all these different things, because sometimes that's where you find them. The other thing I'll point out is, along with being open-minded, you were talking about how sometimes those fish are high in the water column, and I guess I'm jumping topics a little bit here, but that's something that we've noticed, I guess, especially more recently in the ice season, is, those fish higher up. But sometimes, especially when we're talking crappies, those fish, will like fly through your graph. And so when we're watching on our Vexlar, like, you know, when sometimes you get lucky and you're bluegill fishing during the day and they like come up and they're like, oh, interested. And they like look at it and then they come bite. You know, you have time to watch that and plan for it and set the hook, right? But sometimes when you're fishing crappies and they're flying through and on your graph, you see just like blip, blip, you know, like on your Vexlar, blip. Live scope, it's obviously different, right? But sometimes when you're on that crappie bite and you just see that little blip, and that's how you have to know the difference between, I guess, like the interference on your graph. Once in a while you get that, but or like to try up there, because then all of a sudden you get that bite, you catch the crappies. That's a good day.
Yeah, and as you guys know, in most lakes that I've fished anyway, the crappies are almost always higher than the bluegills.
Oh yeah.
Almost always. Like if you find bluegills, they're going to be usually in the bottom 3 or 4 feet, oftentimes, especially if there's weeds. And then the crappies are going to be sitting right above them in like 4 or 5 feet off the bottom a lot of times. And I've seen that so many times that it's pretty consistent, at least around here. And oftentimes the big bluegills, the biggest ones, will suspend with the crappies too. They'll be up higher. And that's one of the tips I gave actually in one of my last videos about fishing when the fishing is tough and the fish aren't biting. Just fish higher in the water column, because number one, a lot of times the more aggressive, bigger fish are riding higher. Number two, if you can get a fish to move and get them to actually activate and move towards your bait, it has a much better chance of actually hitting the bait once it's there. If you just drop it in front of their nose and they're just swimming by, it's much harder to get those fish to turn on if they don't have to chase at all. So fishing high and above fish is key most of the time. I've found almost all year, and not just in the winter. But you know, now having live scope in the summertime, like I almost never fish for walleyes in the bottom 4 feet of the water column anymore because they just won't hit it. I'm casting at walleyes all day, trying to catch them in front of their face, and unless they have to come up and chase it, they just don't eat it. So like I'll throw swim baits and I'll just rip them over their head 5 feet above them, and they'll just smash it. But if you swim it right past their nose, they don't even look at it.
Yeah, that is true. So we've been talking a lot about just like dissecting lakes before you get there, and then kind of picking out spots to fish when you do get there. We've talked a lot about this. So what is your go-to bait sequence? Like where do you start in your baits, and then where do you like know when to stop as far as like size or color? Like how do you go about picking that stuff out?
Well, my rule of thumb is start big and flashy, and only go down and more finessey direction if you have to. So just basically downsize from a large bait until you start catching fish on it, and then don't go any further.
Okay, so I have a question on that, because I don't want to say the opposite, because not that extreme, right? But I am always nervous to use a bigger bait, because I'm worried, like if you toss something down there that's like too big or like too aggressive, too flashy, that maybe you're just scaring the fish away. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Well, I've fished with a camera a lot because we have a lot of clear water up here. So, you know, our fish are very spooky because of the clear water. I drop a giant camera down there and those fish swim right to it without hesitation. And this camera is the size of them. You know, they swim right up to the lens and they're looking at it like this. You know, like a big spoon, a big flashy spoon. I've never seen it scare fish unless you like have some little tiny bluegills right next to it and you just rip it and try and hit them with it. But I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've dropped, you know, like a Eurotackle spade blade down there on a school of panfish and just had one big one race up and smoke it. And all the other fish get excited. They see that, they come in, they're interested in the flash, the react, you know, all the action. I've never had that problem. I'm not worried about it at all. Like when I start fishing, I'm almost always going to either fish some kind of rattle bait, glide bait, or spoon for any kind of panfish. I'm dropping that down first every time because it pulls fish in from further away. they can see that from much further than they can see that tiny little tungsten with a couple spikes on it, and it brings them in it, and it tells me what their mood is too. Like if they come in on it but then they won't hit it, then I know I'm going to have to downsize probably to catch those fish. But at least I know there's fish in the area. And if there's fish in the area, if you drop a spoon down there, they are coming to check it out within seconds almost every time.
Hmm. Hmm. I okay. I
The other
know
thing is, like, the reason I don't downsize if I don't have to is you can fish much faster and more aggressively and quicker with a heavier bait. It's just a more efficient way to catch fish. So if I can use a heavier bait, like a tungsten spoon or something like that, get right back down there, rip another one out, boom, 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 fish fast, you're going to catch a lot more fish in a day than you are waiting for that 32nd ounce tungsten to fall all the way down to the bottom and then wait for fish to be close enough to see it, you know.
Well, and I know that you're right, because when you give the first example about the camera, that's exactly right. As we have the AquaView, and you toss that camera down there, and that is especially bluegills. That's the first thing they do is they show up. Ooh, what is this? What is this? And sometimes in packs, like you can watch them all swim in, and they're like, "What is this?" And so that is a really great example. And so, you know, I will admit one time this year, and then we got to a spot, and the first thing I threw down was like a big spoon, and I did catch a fish right away. So
there you go. Now the other thing I will do is, you know, sometimes you catch a couple right away on an aggressive bait. Then the school shuts down. They don't want to eat it. They'll come check it out, but they aren't going to bite. Then you downsize. Say you go to a tungsten and plastic, catch a bunch of fish, then they shut off. They don't want to eat that anymore. Then I'll go back to the spoon. And a lot of times I'll catch one or two more fish out of the school that it's just a totally different look, totally different thing. It's a reaction bite, and they just cream that spoon. And they wouldn't even hit that tiny tungsten I had down there, but they see that spoon coming, and they just a switch flips, and they get super aggressive and clobber it. Like the other day that happened, I was fishing a tree in 32 feet of water. It's a big giant white pine tree on the bottom, loaded with crappies. Nobody else fishes it, and I know there's big ones on it. So I was trying to catch a 15, and I had like 8 or 9 over 14 inches that I had caught so far. And then they kind of shut off, and I wasn't catching anymore. And they were only biting a little tiny tungsten and plastic. I couldn't get them to bite on anything big. So I went left and walked around, tried a few other spots, and nothing really happened. And I came back to that tree, dropped a spoon, rip. Here comes a mark, whack, 15 and a quarter. Just like that. Giant crappie.
oh my gosh.
You know, you just got to change it up sometimes.
Okay. Well, and I appreciate this conversation, because I'm bringing up spoons like I hate them or like they're totally new. But actually, what I have been doing is I've been using them as like a secondary bait, dare I say. So I guess I need to use them more as my primary bait. But what I've been doing this year especially is sometimes I'll even drill 2 different holes in my ice shack. And I'll put the Vexilar down the hole with like my little tungsten and my little, I don't know, wiggle plastic, some kind of wormy thing. I don't know, a little tiny profile, right? Yeah. But in the other hole, I'll put down that giant spoon, because the Vexilar is probably going to be able to pick up both, especially, you know, that spoon in the other hole. It'll read that. So I can kind of tell where I'm at. But I've been using the spoon to really call fish in, because like you're saying, fish can see it from farther away. You can fish faster. You can get more of that action and the movement and the flash. But I've been finding that a lot of times then those fish, that they don't actually want to eat all of that bait. And so then, you know, a lot of times they'll opt for that, you know, the easier bait, the smaller bait, and I'll get the bite actually on the tungsten and the plastic, you know. And so it's been really fun to kind of experience both, use both, have them accent each other. Because that I will say this year, that was a little bit new for me, but it's been working great.
Yeah, the other thing that works great is to use a good sized minnow on a dead stick for your attractor.
Yeah.
That works really well too. I mean, I do that all the time. Even for panfish, I'll put like a 3-inch shiner down there just to attract them to the area, just to get that flash, that water moving, get their attention. And then I don't even care if they bite it. I'm getting them into the area, and then they're hitting my smaller profile bait.
Well, the other reason that I love that is because we have a few lakes that once you do call in those panfish, oh my gosh, there's one lake right by your house just south. And then when you bring all those panfish in, and then just like 5 or 10 minutes later, and you're like, dang, where'd the bite go? It's because finally a pike followed them in. And so when you have that big shiner or something down there, that's always fun when you can like run for the tip up too or something.
Oh yeah. And another thing that you just reminded me of too is, especially for perch, if you have that big shiner down there, a lot of times that's going to keep the school around longer because you're
Oh,
catching fish. Every time you catch a fish and your bait comes out of the water, that school just keeps going. They're moving. You know, a lot of times they're just grazing across these big flats. So you got to capitalize when that school is there. And if you don't have another person fishing with you, there's nothing to hold those perch there. They're just going to cruise right past you. You're going to get one out of the school, and by the time you get back down, they're gone. But if you have that shiner down there, they're going to peck at it. They're going to stick around, and you can hold them there for quite a while sometimes just by having a minnow down there that they're interested in. And if we have two people, we always try and tag team them. You know, one guy catch one, the other guy's down there. Yeah, he catches one. You know, and just back and forth, back and forth. I mean, we've kept schools around for 15 minutes and just kept pounding on them. Whereas if you were by yourself, you might have got one or two fish and see you later.
Yeah, that's that's a good point. I was just talking with a buddy of mine, and he was telling me a trick he learned when he was younger was when they perch fished a lot with tip ups, and they would take, and if they were get a perch on a tip up, and then they'd reset it, set it down, and then it would go off, and they'd catch another perch. They always carried a bobber in their pocket, and then so they just a clip bobber, so they just clip the bobber on, throw it back down, and so you don't have to reset your flag every time. You just drop it back down, the bobber goes down, and then you just capitalize on the school that way. So
Sure.
that's kind of a fun little trick that I would have never thought of.
No.
Yeah, I mean the old timers used to leave a perch hooked on the line on one line, and then they would fish next to it because that perch would keep the school around. You'd just swim around down there in circles, and they wouldn't leave. And I know that's still legal in Wisconsin, but I don't think it's legal in Minnesota actually. In Minnesota, it's technically using a game fish or a perch for bait if you don't reel it up and actually catch it. But in Wisconsin, you can do that. I've never tried it, but I'm sure it works. I mean, why wouldn't it? You know.
Yeah.
And the other thing we do on roaming perch is we'll set the predator tip ups out in auto mode. You know, which does catch some perch, but I always drill a second hole right next to that predator tip up because when it goes up, I just reel that fish up and drop another bait down instantly as soon as I get there. And a lot of times I'll catch 3 or 4 more next to where that fish just hit because the school's still there.
Yeah.
So that works really well too.
I feel like this is that moment where I should be like, this show is brought to you by a bait up. You know, like, I wish I could see that. Because in this instance, my biggest issue is that, like, I don't know, I leave the bait cooler like way over there. And I'm going to need a way to carry bait around faster.
I have always been a live bait guy. I mean, when it comes to ice fishing, minnows, I always have minnows with me. I don't care where it is. I mean, I grew up tip up fishing. Like that's what we did as a kid. I don't even know. We hardly ever even really jigged all that much because we were so busy tip up fishing, and it was all about the minnows, you know, like, and it's still, I just can't go ice fishing without bringing minnows with me.
So wait, so then are you just carrying your bait cooler with you everywhere? Is that, or is there a better way?
No, that's pretty much all I do. I just got a 13 quart angle and it just goes with me everywhere. Yeah.
Okay. Well, apparently we both need to contact bait up.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, no, I'm laughing about that because otherwise I'm the opposite of you. I could fish with no live bait ever, but like I know sometimes a waxworm just does it. Sometimes a spike, that's what the fish want. You know, a minnow, whatever, you know, that's what you got to do. And you cannot put a plastic on a tip off. That just doesn't.
No.
Maybe a hot.
And that's the thing. I use set lines so much. Like I almost never go ice fishing and don't use a set line or two. You know, that's the biggest thing. I have to have those minnows for my set lines. Now, when it comes to jigging, I actually don't use live bait almost ever anymore.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Very rarely. We have such good plastics now.
Yeah.
We have, I've been using beaver tail, which is amazing. That stuff is absolutely deadly. It stays on the hook forever. And I've been using that. I use Billy Rub, Billy Rub scent, which stays on the hook and adds some attraction to the hook. I use, some of the Fish Daddy the perch eyes, or the little plastic eyes from Fish Daddy. There's so many things you can tip your jigs with that are better than live bait for actually staying on the hook,
Mhm.
and they work just as well in most situations. There's just very few times where you need live bait to tip baits with. The fish have to be in a just incredibly finicky mood to bother with it, in my opinion, anymore.
Yeah, and I think for me, like I the live bait is there mostly just for set lines and for tip ups, and wintertime is a lot easier, right? Like my biggest hurdle is like making sure that they don't freeze into a solid block. That's a lot easier than like making sure they don't cook when it's 100 degrees out. So
Yeah.
summertime I give the live bait a break, but during the wintertime it's a lot easier. So we always have a little bit, and yeah, it always does seem though that the bait bucket is always on the opposite side of the setup when you want it.
Yeah. And there's like even open water too. It's the baits we have now and the technology we have now. I very rarely use live bait in open water anymore, unless I'm slip bobber fishing, which I still like to do sometimes, which is again is basically your summertime version of a set line.
Hmm.
Uh, Other than that, like if I'm casting jigs, it's always plastics on jigs. I almost never tip a jig with a minnow anymore. And if somebody tells me there's a shiner bite, jig and shiner bite, and you can't catch them any other way, I'll go there and wail on them with a swim bait on a
With
jig.
another way, yeah.
Every time. I have not found a bite where people were catching them on shiners on jigs that I couldn't catch them on plastics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I'm wondering, is this like a mindset shift of the anglers, or if this is the bait companies? Like, I feel like one of the things I've noticed, I don't know, maybe I'm reading into things too much or thinking too much, but like in the world of in ice fishing world or what Facebook land, and people, the baits that they're using, and you always used to hear like you have to use a minnow head, you have to use a minnow head. And some people do, right? But I sometimes feel like in the past you'd walk around the lake and you just see like a billion minnow bodies like left behind, like I don't know. And again, you still see a lot of that. A lot of people are doing that, and that's fine. But I think where I'm going with this is that there's a lot of bait companies out there, Euro tackle, you have that on your hat, right? And they are so mindful of making a bait that is the attractant, that is, and fine, tip it with bait, put wax worms on, put a minnow head on, or whatever. But like you had mentioned the spade blade before, and that is a bait that you can run as is. Like you don't have to put live bait on that. You can fish that like that, and I think that's a really nice thing, is like all these different hard baits these days that are available to different anglers that you don't have to tip, that you don't have to add bait to. And like we said, you can, and you have that choice and go for it, right? But it's cool when you can just kind of flop between baits like really quickly and find what that bite is and just hone in and catch those fish. So
Yeah, and a lot of times you're ruining everything when you put a minnow head on a bait. You're completely ruining the action. Like glide baits don't work right. A lot of spoons don't work right with a big minnow head on there. Rattle baits, the Z vibers. I never tip those with anything that's more than like a waxy or Billy Rub nugget or something like that, really small, because it'll ruin the action. It won't work right. And you don't need to, like you said. A lot of them look so realistic, and uh, they're so they look so edible already. There's just no need, for any extra stuff on them. I like to do little tweaks, like I'll add a VMC, one of those spinner hooks on there, one of those
oh
bladed trebles. Those are really deadly because it just adds a little bit of flash. I like the fish to target the hook.
Hmm.
So, I like something on there, but not something that's going to ruin the action. So those Billy Rub nuggets work good for that. A little strip of beaver tail works good for that. Anything that just has a little bit of profile or color or scent to it helps on that hook that you want that fish to target, but you don't need live bait.
Well, I have three thoughts on that. I think one, bait quality has increased since the old days with the minnow head. I think two other things that are big major factors. One being electronics. I think electronics have really helped people
Narrowing on the fish.
narrowing on the fish, but just visualize what's going on under the ice, right? It's so much harder to work like a Z Viber or a glide bait or something like that when you can't see your bait moving and you don't know where it is. You're just jigging up and down. There might be a fish trying to chase it and it's just moving too much, right? And so like I think that has a lot to do with it. But I think one of the things that shouldn't be overlooked is just rod technology in general. Like I really do think rods have gotten to be so much better when you're talking about fishing hard baits and plastics and stuff, where you're not fishing with a branch anymore. It's not just a peg of wood with two pegs sticking out of it and a big metal rod holding your line away from your hand, right? It's actually a fishing rod. And so I really think those three things have really made live bait non-essential. Not saying
because you're saying
it's
basically
not,
that gives you
it
gives you the extra few seconds you need a lot of times if
Yep.
you don't have all that technology the fish can chomp on it, then it chokes up again,
Yep.
starts pulling, and it's a lot easier to catch fish on a broomstick that way than it is on. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. You're probably right about that.
Oh my gosh. Oh gosh. So I feel like we could talk to you forever.
Probably. I think I could go for at least a week.
Oh my gosh. So any last minute tips or tricks or things that you want to talk about or tell the people at home? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just trying to sum up here, I guess.
Man, one of the things I've been thinking about lately is just go fishing to have fun. Just have fun. Like there's so many people online on Facebook and in the YouTube comments, and they are just not having fun. You can just tell. It's like they're just ticked off that somebody's got something they don't, or they have live scope and they're cheating, or there's so many things, just arguing all the time. Just I never have cared about what anyone else is doing. Like I just go fishing to have fun. Like I just go to enjoy it. I just do it to the best of my ability and try and be smart about the resource and don't be wasteful and try and do my best and have fun. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing or who's catching too many fish or not releasing them or whatever. I just tell people what I do and why I do it. You don't have to worry about them. They can figure it out. Just do your own thing. That's my advice.
I love it.
It's honestly really good advice.
Yeah.
And then I know that there's quite a few events and shows and expos and things coming up. Do you take part in any of those? Do you have any events coming up?
Well, I do several ice shows, which are typically earlier in the season, but I am going to be at the Duluth outdoor show here in next week. Actually, I'm working with RJ Sport for Lund, so I'm on the Lund Pro team, and I'm going to be talking boats up there. Other than that, I don't have anything planned yet for expos. I might try and get to some here this early spring, but man, I love them, but they take so much time and they're always on weekends, which is usually when I'm with my family now.
Yeah.
When I want to be fishing.
Yeah, or when you want to be fishing. So it just depends on how much time I have, and it also depends on how the spring goes. Like if we get an early-ish spring, I'm going to be walleye fishing on the rivers pretty quick. So it just depends on the year, and also depends on what sponsors need help too. Like sometimes a sponsor will call me up and say, hey, we could use you at such and such, can you show up? And I'll do my best to help the sponsors out. But a lot of times my time is better spent filming than it is at a show. So
Oh my gosh. Well, that is awesome. And well, actually, I think we're going to get to bump into you on the ice yet this year. But hopefully we'll get to bump into you again at a show or an expo or something, maybe open water.
What shows are you guys going to?
Wisconsin Fishing Expo in Madison end of February.
Okay. That'd be a fun one. I've never been to that one.
It is actually a really good
It's a really good time. It's kind of like the open water version of the ice fishing expo. So
okay.
Well, that would be fun then. Came first.
I know, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we'll tell you all about it.
Yeah, I'd like to hear about it. Maybe I'll try and make it there.
And if all you guys out there haven't followed Caleb yet, you have to go look up his channels because you do put out some really good stuff, and you've been putting out some really good tip videos lately. So I've been partaking in that, gaining some knowledge. So that's been nice.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it seems like on my channel, education is definitely what people want to see. So anytime I do tip videos, they always seem to do well.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us this evening. Gosh, I'm tongue-tied. I was going to say, I feel like I learned so much from you this evening.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's fun talking to you guys. I could, like you say, I could talk fishing for a very, very long time, and I always feel like it's never long enough. So
yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, good thing we'll have another episode of podcast coming up next week. We'll always have good stuff to talk about.
Yep.
If anyone wants to join in the conversation, you can anytime in that comment section. But otherwise, thank you so much for being here. Because it was really honestly so fun. And to the people at home, thank you guys as well, because that is always a big part of the fun. And I guess we are looking forward to planning the rest of our evening. And so if you have any camping tips or tips on food to bring, that's what I'm still interested in. So hit us up in that comment section. And otherwise, we look forward to bringing you the report next week.
All right. Night, everybody.